The Millennium Project is a global think tank. We have about 63 nodes around the world, and we ask them what we should be looking at on an ongoing basis. And the most recent one was we should be taking a look at the future technologies and employment and work and economic change around the world. So what we did is we reviewed it's a big word, we reviewed a lot of the research around the world on this, and to find out what wasn't asked that ought to be asked, and what was answered badly in our judgment that should be re-asked. So that formed the basis for a questionnaire we call a real-time Delphi, and the participants in it, 300 to 400 people around the world, are chosen by the chairs of our nodes around the world. So I don't select who in Iran is answering or who in Israel is answering. It's picked by these local nodes around the world. Then we take all of this information, and that formed the basis for writing 3 alternative scenarios to make real the feeling, the taste, touch, and feeling of the future, because most of the work we saw, although they used the word scenario, really weren't. They're discussions of assumptions. The 3 scenarios, the first one is it's a mixed bag, sort of business as usual. You're taking the dynamics of what is and projecting it out to 2050. Now, that doesn't mean when people say surprise-free or business as usual, it doesn't mean it's the same world. Because if we have the acceleration of change, then 2050 is a whole lot different than the last 25 or 30 years. But that's still business as usual in that sense. The second one was political turmoil, and this is sort of a global despair. This is where it's not business as usual. It's where we sort of act like ostriches, sticking our head in the sands and saying, this is too complex, I don't want to deal with it. So as a result, organized crime deals with it, and a lot of corporations become far more powerful. There's an overlap between terrorism and organized crime, which is happening today, but it happens far more because as you take future technologies and we talk about how that can give us tremendous capability, that gives tremendous capability to organized crime. So you take something like synthetic biology, which, by the way, was a weak point we found in the global assessment. People looked at AI, and very simplistically, but they didn't look at things like artificial biology. Synthetic biology could become a larger deal than the Industrial Revolution, potentially. Think of all the things nature does, and then put that in with AI and automation, and put it across the world. I mean, that's tremendous capabilities. But organized crime can have that too. So governments are continually in gridlock. They're not, making the right decisions. So the vacuum is filled by a lot of other players that don't turn out very nicely. The third one is if humans were free, a self-actualizing economy. This is quite a different future. This is where people start to have discussions like this around the world and take their time to think it through. Imagine if we took our time to think through after we saw the first steam engine, right? Say, oh my God, this could become a big deal, this industrial stuff. We might have taken our time to design the Industrial Revolution such that we didn't have pollution, and we might not have had so much climate change today. So you want to do the warning stuff, but the third one was a positive one, saying, okay, people did have these workshops, they did think them through, books were written, conferences like this are held, and over a period of time, we end up with a lot of good strategies, a lot of good approaches to this. The reason for the phrase, if humans were free, was that right now, you may have a good idea, and you write a proposal, or you make a suggestion, and then somebody says no. And then you say, oh shucks, I won't do it, right? Well, if you had some form of guaranteed income, then you just do it. You take who's the company that says, just do it. Well, you can't just do it if you're financially bound. But if you're less financially bound with some guaranteed income, then an awful lot of things can happen. Now, there's a psychologist, Abraham Maslow, who studied healthy people versus Freud, who studied unhealthy people. And Maslow found that there was a sequence of healthy people. And so after you have your basics needs, which we now have done to a large degree with the food systems and transportation systems and shelter systems, and the basics of an awful lot of people are being handled, Then you have your love and belongingness, which is sort of the social media to some degree, taking care of that. So the next step eventually becomes self-actualization. Who are you? What is your gift to the world? How do you connect that gift to the whole world and have some sort of income? Maybe you have an artificial AI avatar that goes running around the world while you're sound asleep, wakes you up and the next morning and say, guess what? There's 75,000 things that's cool for you to do today. I know you can't do them all, so let's talk about it. And so each day could be an invention. Now that's a very idealistic future, but it is a trend forecast with certain decisions. Now, the guaranteed annual income in our studies didn't look like it was feasible until about 2030. I mean, there are experiments going on right now. Maybe things go on faster than I think, but why 2030 or so? Because the income of the new technologies, synthetic biology, artificial intelligence, robotics, 3D printing, cloud analytics, quantum computing. I mean, there's a whole lot of these things we call NT, to make a long list short. NT. That we think that this new income of that continues to go up and up. Like you're going to tax robots. You know, you can, a lot of new income sources without the concurrent employment stuff. So this gap goes up. So at the same time, there's another curve that starts to come down around, looks good in 2030, and that is the cost of living. We've gotten used to the idea that electronics, the price will come down. The capability goes up, the price goes down. We accept this. This is not quite there yet with medicine, but it could be eventually. The same with education, the same with transportation. So you can see some, cost of living going up, and starting to go over down. Right? Then you see the income going up, and there's new technology. Where this crosses over, then we think you can start to talk about guaranteed annual income as a very financially sustainable thing. One of the things we found is that no government that I have talked to has done a cash flow projection. It's an obvious thing to do. Where's the income? I mean, like a business plan, you have to have a cash flow projection, right? We need cash flow projections in cities, in governments, in countries around the world, and to think this through and share information, and as a family make this decision. And that's the purpose of these scenarios, to open up the mind of this.